I find a lot of my clients want this setup where they're like, I want a free version that funnels into a paid version. And what I'm always telling them, which is when you're doing that, you're running two communities the majority of the time. You now have two different programs. Unless there's like a really compelling reason why the free offering must be community, the level of effort to just like create a good community experience to me is not matched up with the benefit of having a free product. So like looking at this, I might be more inclined to do the 30-day challenge as like a email course or like a free course, like something that is a little bit more self-sustaining.
Welcome to Community Dissection, where we dissect online communities to give you an inside look at community design, architecture, and evolution. Let's dive in.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Community Dissection. In this episode, we are dissecting the Ministry of Testing, which I found out about on a LinkedIn thread about like awesome communities that are happening online. And so I was immediately thought of Noele Flowers because I have wanted to get her on an episode for a long time. And I was like, Noele, you've got to do this one with me. So Noele, do you want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for having me, Bri. I'm so excited to be here and that we finally got to connect and see each other's faces because I feel like we've been emailing each other and sort of orbiting for a long time.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm Noele. I've worked in a couple of different community and sort of education crossover roles. And so these kinds of communities of practice are always exciting for me to poke around in. And this is such a good prompt to do this because this is what I'm always like telling people to do is like, you know, beg, borrow, and steal from other communities, look at how they're working, poke around in them. And it's nice to have that prompt to like do it myself on a new community as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In this episode, we're going to be dissecting the member experience of this community. So if it all goes well, we'd love to interview some of the people who lead this community. It'd be awesome to hear about the evolution of it. So if you want that episode too, leave a comment. But let's dive right in. So just to kick off, I want to show what this community looks like when you join and the experience finding the community was really easy. To be honest, I just typed in like Ministry of Testing community into Google because that's what I knew I was looking for. I don't know how they bring in and find new members. I couldn't really tell. So that'd be like an interesting question for episode 2. But once we joined, there is a free community and kind of pro paid community. And I'm going to refrain my thoughts on all this, on this structure. But Noele, right off the bat, I'd love to know, as you kind of clicked around in the community, what was something you loved in this community? And tell me where to navigate if you want me to go there.
Okay, for sure. So I think one of the things that kind of struck me off the bat is I'm a really big fan of communities that are sort of demonstrating through their community architecture how they want people to contribute. And I think that's like one of the first cues you get, like, you know, you walk into a room, you smell gas, you're like, oh, the stove's on. It almost needs to feel that obvious for people when they're coming into a community through some of the first things that they're scanning, like what they're supposed to do there. And I think this community has that, like it's giving you the impression that there's both these sort of short form, more informal conversations, but also there's like events and content. And that to me kind of comes to bear when I start clicking around in some of these posts that you can see like people are contributing articles, they're posting events. There's not just this sense of like, I think when communities lack this, you can end up with sort of like members contributing in this sort of transactional way, where there's like a big break between administrators creating really high quality content and then members coming in and having these like short conversations. And all this to say, long-winded way to say, I think this community is doing a good job of sort of like wrapping the members into the high value content creation.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm not certain on this, but it appears that there is like a pretty intense like funnel for leadership in this community. They're activating members to create content as well. Like I clicked into learning to lead before becoming a leader. And so I started seeing like all these different kind of roles, like QA lead, like testing operationalist, or I don't know, all of these. And I personally I'm not in the testing world, so I'm not sure of the jargon, but some of it was appearing to be like internal community managers, but some of it was appearing to be members who have taken on like a leadership role within the community, and they are creating longstanding content and also contributing to like that more informal conversation.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that. That's such a good point that it actually, this is almost a good thing, is that it wasn't like totally clear who the admin was.
Yes.
Some communities you come in, you're like right away, there's one person leading it. And I did not get that sense from this community at all.
Yeah, there's a really good, like, it's a little heavy on this monster guy, and I don't know if that's like, I don't know if the monster guy is just like the default for anybody without a profile picture, but I'm like, there's a good dispersion of like profile pictures here, which is a great indicator to me. We can't see like how many, the volume of, but what's nice about the forum style is you can see really quickly, like, oh, there's 28 likes, or this one's like really popular, so I'm going to start there. And you can't see that. And I don't know if that's intentional. Maybe they turned it off. So they have the tags here to help you like more quickly just determine, like, it just feels like this feels like a lot of reading for me to like scan down and figure out like which one should I click into, just to like get a vibe on what's happening here. And that wasn't super clear to me, but overall, like, I really love it. I think this is like an excellent, robust forum that they have.
Totally. Yeah. We got to get the monster person on for a interview.
We'll interview the Ministry of Testing monster at a later episode.
But yes, like to your point, I don't know if I'm now getting us too far into, I've given you my rose, but that was actually sort of related to my thorn. Should I
dive in? Yeah. So what's something that you would adjust or modify in the community?
So I guess like one quick thing is that I'm seeing a lot of emphasis on these like illustrated cards. And when I was on the first homepage, I had to like scroll for a little bit before I saw a person's face, a person's avatar. Yeah, like that's the first one that pops up, is this person in the middle. And to my eye, I think that is intended to make it look really professional, but is sort of feeling slightly impersonal to me to have all these cards. It's like a lot of information to ingest. And I was also running into like a little bit of confusion over the architecture in general. Like there's a lot of duplication in where you can get to different pages. So like this vertical left-hand nav bar is a lot of the same headings as you're seeing on the top nav. And I think what we're seeing is essentially like a post aggregator that's pulling in content types for all of those different things on one central page. And then you're like getting things that are just an event or just a discussion. But then there's also like, if you click on forum, you're like one step ahead of me. I was trying to figure out how much parity there was between this space versus some of the things that were showing up in discussion. It seems like things are being piped into both places. So I think that's one of my big like questions or something I would want to resolve.
Yes, I am so glad you touched on this, because I also clicked on something. The first time I came into this, I was like, oh, there's another community. I was like,
yes,
So having the different, like, it's clearly a different tool. And I think you're right. It is pulling those posts into, maybe it's not the blog feed, club post. There's just a lot of language around, like there's community chat, then there's the forum, then there's the club posts, then there's the blog feed. Like, there's a lot, and communities are supposed to feel really full, but I think in my mind, there's like discussion, and then there's like long-standing content, and there's different like kind of break off points within that, but it does feel a little messy and hard to find where to go for what. I loved, you mentioned too, like the obviousness of this button contribute. I was like, yes. Well, oh wait. But then where is it?
Like, where's my little pen icon?
Right, totally. Okay, so I take that back. So, well, I like that it has contribute, but I want like start a post or like whatever the thing is, or like ask a
I
question.
know what you're, okay. So in the same place on the actual forum page, there's a CTA in the same spot.
Got
There
it.
you go. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so here I can post this. Oh, and this is in Discourse. Okay, interesting.
And then it looks to me like on the sort of main page, the tag that's designated timeline is an aggregator.
Yes.
Or
and
like feed.
This timeline is, it's such a nitpicky thing, but I would change the name of this from timeline to like feed. Feed seems more appropriate. Timeline, I was like, I don't know, I kind of think of like historical timeline, but I was like, oh, these are all in like, oh, these are in order of which they were posted, but I think a feed could also do that.
And I'm sure those things that were we to talk to the like managers of this community, I'm sure that they're like, this is frustrating to us too. And there's something inherent to the tool that's making it this way, as it often is. But I'm always like with my clients, if there is an option to make them default to a place where they can right away contribute, that is usually what I advise them to do, rather than being like a few clicks away from the discussion. So like to me, even if it's less clean, I might rather be dumped into the forum and then back up to an experience like this.
Right. Yes. Well, and they have this call to action right at the top, which is contribute. So let's see where this takes us. So I actually wanted to talk about this because this is one of the things I am slightly confused by, but I think that's primarily because of my lack of experience with testing. I love this as an activation and as like, it seems like a 30-day challenge, 30 days of career growth. So yeah, it seems like, and okay, this is getting really nitpicky again, but there's 30 days of career growth here and then 30 days of testing here. So I would be, if that's the same thing, let's call it the same thing. But I love being able to see, which this is like more native to Discord or Discourse, being able to see the activity on each of those. And the day one just being like really simple, introduce yourself and like kick off. Like this feels like it's introducing, okay, yeah, one of our 30 days of career growth. I think this is an awesome post from Simon that includes it really, okay, so why complete this task? To me, it's also kind of why do this challenge? So I love this challenge. I think it's like a really clear, actionable first step when you join the community, because it might also be, I'm seeing that like the call to action here is to comment on each of the days as they come, which I like as a first step. Like you might be, unless you come to the community with like a can't sleep at night question that you need to ask. Starting with a comment is a nice ease into activity. So I like how that's accessible here. But do you have any comments on this 30 days of testing or 30-day career growth?
I think like maybe this is more of a question, but one of the things I'm so curious about this community is like what the rest of the kind of like ecosystem of connection is to these people, because whatever our comments are about the architecture, in a way, like the proof is in the pudding that people are engaging on a pretty high level with this community. And so because the architecture is a little confusing, and like if I jumped in here with no context, I might not necessarily know what to click. That's making me wonder if there's like a really effective onboarding sequence happening in email.
Yeah.
That's like part of this. So people are coming in with more context, because like I agree, the activations are super high quality. It's just like a little hard to find which one to engage with.
Yes. It almost makes me wonder too, a lot of times communities will use challenges as like a lead magnet and like a reason to join your community now. So it makes me wonder if maybe there was a whole campaign around like join our 30-day challenge. So people are coming in with that, like they're coming in for the challenge and then maybe getting onboarded to the rest of the community experience. That's a possibility, which totally. I think is a great strategy for activating people and getting them into your community, by the way.
Absolutely. I'm like, absolutely love challenges.
Yeah. Agreed. We'll do a whole spin-off on why challenges are great later.
Yes, let's talk about it.
If you're enjoying our community dissection episodes and have a community of your own, then I invite you to download our community audit checklist. This is a quick list of things that you can go through and identify in your community that you have, are missing, or might need to be clarified. So don't wait today to improve your own community. And if you're interested in having your community dissected by me and a couple other community professionals, you can nominate your community through the form in the description.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot of overlap, and clearly, like, the more that I clicked around in this community, the more I was just like, I loved like the clear, I'd almost like get rid of this left-hand toolbar because I don't like that you just have the icons. You have to like hover to see like, what is that again? But I loved having the toolbar on the top. I feel like it's really clear, like what happens here. Like we crave simplicity and clarity. And so if there's anything that's like confusing when I first joined, like that's just another barrier to me becoming an active member. So I really love this top navigation. Going right into forums, like this much of forums, I don't know if that's like a good use of real estate on your landing page. Like I think I'd rather see like for an onboarding experience, maybe like this does seem like a really robust community. And usually when they hit this like kind of level, I expect to see something around like pick your journey, or like I'm new to testing, or I'm an expert in testing. And it kind of walks you through like, if you're new, then start here with some of our, like what was that one event that was like leadership, learn to lead before you become a leader. It has like recommended content to sort of guide that journey a little bit more once it's like this overwhelming with this much content. So that would be maybe something I would look into, and a good way to use this like real estate for someone who's just joining the community to help them find what they need.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I mean, and at the same time, it's like, I'm sorry to harp on this, but now I'm like, what's happening that we can't see? Because it's clearly like working in some sense to get people activated here. And that like really implies to me that there's a larger experience to onboarding or to like becoming embedded and habituated in this brand that we don't see. And to me, that's sort of like a testament to the fact that there are a lot of community platforms. I would actually say I'm not aware of a community platform that doesn't have some kind of confusing content architecture. Sorry to all the platforms, but a lot of times you're sort of on an uphill battle of like, how do I get people around some of the inherent challenges of community architecture? And I'm like, I want to dissect that, how they did that.
Yes. Yeah. No, there's definitely a greater ecosystem at work here. So we'll need an episode 2. People from Ministry of Testing, reach out because we want to know more. The only other thing I'll add to what I would modify is, and this is more like zooming out, and I'm really curious your thoughts on this, Noelle, the dynamic between the free community and the paid pro community. So I'm actually of the philosophy that I make very few exceptions for free communities. I think there are community experiences that can be offered for free, but I would generally advocate for a paid community experience. Obviously, it's much easier for us to dissect because this community is free. So I love that personally in this moment. But having access, so I'm coming into this space, I'm already like, oh my God, there's more content and information and discussion here than I could like work through in like the 5 hours that I've allotted myself for like the personal development around testing. Like that's just a hypothetical situation. So the incentive for me, I'm curious what this community has experienced as the tipping point for why people join pro, because this says, welcome back, have a scroll through the timeline and see what grabs your attention. You can unlock more by going pro. And when I come into this space, I'm like, more? I don't need more. Are you kidding me? I'm like drowning over here. I'm like just trying to figure out like between the 2 forums where everything, which is like great. That's what you want in community, but it kind of takes away from any pain point that I would have for going pro. I'm curious if you have contrary thoughts or anything to add to that, Noelle.
No, Bri, I feel like we're on mind melts. Like, so My perspective on the free and paid community dichotomy is like, I find a lot of my clients want this setup where they're like, I want a free version that funnels into a paid version. And what I'm always telling them, which is maybe more from the perspective of like de-risking the project and managing their workflow going forward, is when you're doing that, you're running two communities the majority of the time. You now have two different programs. And yes, unless there's like a really compelling reason why the free offering must be community, the level of effort between to just like create a good community experience to me is not matched up with the benefit of having a free product. So like looking at this, I might be more inclined to do the 30-day challenge as like a email course or like a free course, like something that is a little bit more self-sustaining.
Yes.
I think the counterpoint to that is, which I don't necessarily see happening here, but I'd be curious if it is in some way, is if there's like a lot of symbiosis between the paid experience and the free experience. For example, if the paid tier is essentially running the free tier. So if there's some reason for them to get credibility as leaders in the space by being community leaders in the free space, like that can be a great relationship. And then obviously like one of the big upsides for a free community is that they get used to the ecosystem. But yes, if that, as you're saying, if that serves to make it feel like you're taking a sip from a fire hose, maybe that's not the best.
Yeah. Yeah. If you've watched an episode on here before, you'll know that I say this on almost every episode. I consider there to be 3 pillars for community programming: events, conversation, and content. And I believe that events and content make great lead magnets into your community. They're great free. You can do like a free event that then leads people to join your community. You can do a free blog post or resource or guide or PDF that then like leads people into, or challenge. I would even put under like, it's kind of like a cross between discussion and content, but whatever. Discussion, conversation itself, I think is really hard to make as like the free element of your community programming. So I like to isolate that because that's like really the heart of like ongoing connection happening online. It's also happening in events and content, but that's the tough one to make both free and paid. So yeah, I feel like we addressed this from a lot of different angles. If you have any questions about this, I love this topic. So post in the comments, tag Noelle or I, because we would love to talk. I'm guessing Noelle would love to talk more.
Yes, this is fascinating. Yeah. And I feel like I'm learning so much. Like in some ways our perspectives are so aligned, but I think that it's so interesting for me to see like the, I guess, perspective that you come at it from and the way that you break down how to think about the information. Like, I think that's one of the fascinating things about talking to other community builders is like how you've thought about organizing your knowledge around this and saying like those 3 pillars might not be exactly how I would have said it before, but it is definitely like something that resonates with me.
Yeah. Oh, I always love it when we like come to the same conclusion, but like the methodology to get there was totally, and it just reaffirms kind of the argument a little bit. I'm like, yes, we're on the right path.
Yes.
Makes it all feel less crazy. Awesome. So I like to say this as we kind of wrap up to any members of community or the community of Ministry of Testing. If you're a part of this community, know that it looks phenomenal. We're super impressed, and you should be like so stoked to be participating in such an awesome space and be able to get it for free. Take advantage of that for as long as you can. But to everyone internally, it's so easy for community professionals like Noelle and I to come in and like see something for the first time and be like, oh, why don't we change all of these things? And we know just as much how difficult it is to be operating within the confines of a platform and your business dynamics and team internally. So take all of this insight and all of our questions with the curiosity and generosity that they are intended. That is our hope for this episode. But if you're curious to continue the conversation, we would love to know more about the evolution of this community. So feel free to reach out to me. Noelle, do you have any parting thoughts or takeaways on this community?
Just that it it does look awesome. I mean, I'll just give you that like high five. Again, if you're watching this and you have some kind of insider involvement in this, like I said before, all of the comments that we're making are sort of speculative from our own experience, but like the proof is in the pudding that people are enjoying and engaging in this experience and contributing on a very high level, which is no small feat. And that's like the part that I want to hear more about, is like how you accomplished that. Yeah. Great job.
Awesome. Great job, team. Well, thank you all for joining us. Like and subscribe to watch more community dissections. We have tons of different communities, paid communities, membership communities, free brand communities that we dissect in this series with community professionals just like Noelle. So like and subscribe for more content, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Bye, everyone.